When you think of the icons who have shaped the modern world, some names come up again and again: Einstein, Edison, Newton. But there's another name, sometimes spoken in hushed awe, sometimes celebrated in movies, books, or memes, and sometimes almost forgotten. That name is Nikola Tesla, and the truth is, the world we live in today, invisible waves of electricity humming all around us, lights flickering on at the touch of a switch, and smartphones buzzing with messages, owes more to Tesla than most of us realize. Yet Tesla's life story isn't one of easy fame or fortune. In fact, his journey is almost a tragic epic, packed with dizzying moments of genius, deep loneliness, betrayal, visionary dreams, poverty, and especially a bright, unwavering belief in the impossible. He was, in every sense, both the child of the storm and the child of light, as his own mother once predicted the very night he was born. So, who was Nikola Tesla really? How did a boy from a stormy night in rural Europe become the eccentric wizard who tried to give free energy to the world? And what did it cost him? Let's walk together through the different chapters of his extraordinary life. A stormy start. Nikola Tesla's birth itself seemed like a message from the universe. On a wild night in July 1856, during a thunderstorm in Smiljan, in what's now Croatia, Tesla's mother labored as lightning crashed outside. The midwife, perhaps unnerved by the tempest, is said to have warned, "This child will be the child of the storm." But Tesla's mother, a woman of deep intuition, fired back, "No, he will be the child of light." Rarely in all the world's folklore does a mother's prophecy land so close to destiny. From the very beginning, Tesla stood out. He was one of those rare children whose minds seem to absorb and reflect the world in mysterious, dazzling ways. There's a story that, as a boy, Tesla once asked a man for money. The man refused, apparently saying, "No, you are much too clever," almost as if being clever was mischievous or even dangerous. Much of Tesla's genius was inherited. His mother, although uneducated formally, had a remarkable inventive mind and a memory that could store hundreds of poems, songs, and tales. From her, Tesla learned the joy of inventing, tinkering, and experimenting. It was said she could make household gadgets from scratch, no small feat in the 19th century Balkans. But this wasn't always easy on the family. His father was an Orthodox priest, a man of the cloth and reason in equal measure, who dreamed his son would one day follow him into the ministry. But young Nikola's mind was already elsewhere, dreaming up mechanical wonders, memorizing mathematical puzzles, and seeing solutions to problems most adults couldn't even imagine. School only confirmed what everyone around him sensed. There was something special about this boy. His teachers thought he was cheating because he could, in his head, solve complex mathematics faster and more accurately than anyone else. His ability to focus, to visualize, and to remember made learning and problem-solving almost effortless. For Tesla, mathematics and invention seemed less like work than play for a mind that simply never stopped shining. But life wasn't all smooth for Tesla. His father's refusal to let him become an engineer, a tension between practical dreams and family expectations, hung over his young years like a shadow. This struggle came to a harrowing head when, as a teenager, Tesla fell terribly ill with cholera. He was so close to death that his father, finally, moved by the sight of his wasted son, relented. "If you recover, you shall go to the best technical institute in the world." That promise became the spark that pushed Tesla into a life of invention. Young adulthood, passion, and the first taste of failure. With adolescence and near-fatal illness behind him, Tesla charged forward into a wider, brighter world. At 17, he entered the Polytechnic Institute in Graz, Austria. Here was an opportunity at last, not only to study engineering, but to dive into every subject that interested him. He thrived, at least at first. Teachers and professors called him a star student. He devoured lectures, kept long hours in the lab, and impressed peers and professors alike with the sheer intensity of his learning. Tesla was more than just a technical whiz. He was a prodigy with words, learning to speak and write in at least 8 languages. He could switch between them as needed, sometimes in the same conversation. Perhaps for Tesla, different tongues represented different ways of thinking, or perhaps, as so often happens, genius in one field spills over into others. But there was a darker side bubbling under the surface. Midway through university, things started to unravel. The endless hours caught up with him. His professors began warning his father about Tesla's obsessive work. It wasn't long before the pressure pushed him into the grip of gambling, a temptation that, for someone with a mind tuned for patterns and risks, must have been irresistible. Gambling nearly ruined him. He lost his scholarship, his money, and most painfully, the trust of his family. Even though he later won back enough at cards to pay off his debts, the downward slide continued. He dropped out of university, never earning a degree. For a time, he drifted, cut off from the family that once believed he would change the world. He survived by working as a technical assistant, teaching at his old high school, and moving from job to job across Eastern Europe. It's easy to imagine that sense of disappointment, that gnawing uncertainty about what his life could have been. But Tesla wasn't finished yet. The world had no idea that its future was, at that moment, being shaped in the mind of this wandering, penniless young man. A new beginning in America. No one could have guessed that this restless, debt-ridden inventor would soon board a ship that would forever change not only his own fate, but the very course of human civilization. In June 1884, clutching a few coins, a worn-out suit, and a clever spark of hope, Nikola Tesla landed in New York City. He had almost nothing, just 4 cents in his pocket, a handful of poems, and a letter of recommendation. But sometimes, almost nothing is all destiny needs. The letter was addressed to Thomas Alva Edison, whose empire of electrical innovation boomed across America like nothing before. Tesla's letter, from an Edison confidant, said simply, "I know 2 great men. You are one of them. The other is this young man." It was the kind of introduction that could open any door, and this one would lead directly into the thrum and clatter of Edison's busy laboratories. At first, Tesla's passion and ability dazzled Edison and his team. Here was a young man who could work days and nights, who understood electrical circuits more intimately than most people understood their own hands, and who overflowed with unexpected ideas. Edison, famously practical, was always looking for a faster, more reliable way to generate and deliver electricity, a million little fixes and improvements. Edison once made Tesla a life-changing offer. "If you can improve my direct current, DC generators and motors, and make them more efficient, I'll pay you $50,000. For Tesla, new in America, hungry for recognition and success, this was a monumental challenge. It was also, as he soon learned, a test of faith. Tesla worked longer hours than ever in his life, overhauling whole systems with elegant solutions and what he called the spark of intuition. When he completed the work and approached Edison for the promised reward, Edison laughed it off as an American joke. Instead, he offered to increase Tesla's weekly salary by a few dollars. The betrayal stung bitterly. Tesla walked away from Edison's company, poorer in money, but certain of one thing. He was born not to follow, but to lead a revolution. The War of Currents, AC versus DC. At the heart of Edison's empire was direct current, DC, a steady, one-way stream of electricity. But DC had a crucial limitation. It could not be efficiently sent long distances. Giant, expensive power plants had to be built within just a mile or 2 of the people using the electricity. Tesla believed the future lay with a different beast, alternating current, AC. AC changed direction 50 or 60 times per second, and with a transformer, it could be sent hundreds of miles with hardly any loss. It was not just theoretical for him. He could see entire cities, even whole countries, tied together by invisible rivers of AC power. After leaving Edison, Tesla found himself digging ditches for survival. For nearly a year, he lived hand to mouth in New York, his head swelling with plans that nobody seemed interested in. Then came an unlikely lifeline. The businessman and inventor George Westinghouse, who'd heard tales of Tesla's insight and vision. Westinghouse saw the genius and put real money on the table. He purchased the patents for Tesla's AC system, gave him a lab, and, just as important, a partner in the incoming war for the world's electrical soul. So began the now legendary War of the Currents. On one side, Thomas Edison, with his growing business empire and a public instinctively wary of change. On the other, George Westinghouse and Nikola Tesla, with a radical, shimmering new technology. The battle was fierce, sometimes even ugly. Edison fought ruthlessly, demonstrating the supposed dangers of AC by electrocuting animals before crowds and lobbying politicians to make AC synonymous with deadly executions. It was a spectacle of fear. Newspapers lined up to carry his warnings. But Tesla and Westinghouse pressed on. They improved transformers, built ever more efficient motors, and slowly, city by city, proved to the world that AC was not only cheaper, but safer and vastly more practical. Victory became all but assured in 1893 when Westinghouse and Tesla won the contract to light up the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. For the first time in history, the entire fairground, larger than some cities, blazed with clean, steady AC light. A sense of awe swept through the crowd, all powered by the current that Tesla dreamed up years before. But there was one final, crowning achievement. At Niagara Falls, the planet's mightiest waterfall, Tesla's and Westinghouse's engineers built the largest hydroelectric plant of its day. For the first time, the endless roar of falling water was converted into electrical power and sent over AC lines miles away to light up the city of Buffalo. Journalists hailed it as a new dawn, a world connected by invisible streams of power. Alternating current swept the globe, becoming the standard for electrical grids everywhere. For Tesla, it was vindication after years of rejection. For the world, it was a step into the true electrical age. His inventor's triumphs and tribulations. With the world switching on to his beloved AC, Tesla entered a period of wild creativity and invention. He set up a laboratory in Manhattan, determined to channel electricity in new and unexplored ways. Long, late nights fueled by black coffee and his own boundless imagination became routine. Visitors would find him amid crackling apparatus, wires spun like spider webs, test tubes glowing with the promise of discovery. During these golden years, Tesla filed over 300 patents, each an expression of his restless genius. He invented the induction motor, a device so robust and efficient that to this day, it remains crucial to everything from factory machines to fans in your own home. Tesla pioneered the Tesla coil, a high-voltage transformer still found at science demonstrations and in the heart of radio technology. For Tesla, these inventions weren't just about machines. They were about giving the world something wondrous, almost magical. Tesla never imagined electricity as just a commodity to be sold. He envisioned a world where power would flow freely and wirelessly. In one memorable demonstration, he lit lamps without wires, electricity shimmering invisibly through the air. Spectators gasped, sometimes with fear, sometimes with awe. To Tesla, this was just the beginning. But dreamers are often their own worst enemies, and Tesla, for all his genius, struggled to turn visions into practical and lasting successes. While others capitalized on the growing electrical industry, Tesla's bizarre public image, he seemed to talk to pigeons, refused to shake hands for fear of germs, and obsessed about the number 3, made potential investors wary. Some saw him as a wizard, others as a madman. His rivalry with Thomas Edison did not cool. Where Edison was a canny businessman, Tesla was almost allergic to profit. He once, in a stunning act of selflessness, tore up a lucrative contract that would have earned him millions just to save Westinghouse from bankruptcy. In the process, he condemned himself to a lifetime of financial insecurity. When reporters asked why he did it, he simply replied that ideas and human progress meant more than gold. Wireless dream and beyond. Soon, Tesla's ambitions outgrew even the remarkable AC network he and Westinghouse built. He began to obsess over the idea of wireless energy, transmitting power and information across vast distances, even the globe itself, with no wires at all. It might sound like fantasy, but Tesla had already demonstrated much of the necessary technology in his laboratories. A wealthy financier, J.P. Morgan, agreed to back Tesla in constructing a new tower and research facility on Long Island, New York, Wardenclyffe. The plan was breathtaking: to beam power for lights, communication, even ships at sea, directly through the air. When wireless is perfectly applied, Tesla once boasted, the whole Earth will be converted into a huge brain. We shall be able to communicate with one another instantly, irrespective of distance. But reality is unforgiving, and the world, ever practical, pulled the rug from under Tesla just as his tower neared completion. Morgan, learning that Tesla's invention might provide free energy and seeing no clear path to controlling or profiting from it, cut funding. Other backers withdrew. Construction stopped. The gigantic steel skeleton stood abandoned. Tesla refused to believe it was over. He poured his own funds into Wardenclyffe, borrowing and selling cherished belongings. But the financial spiral was impossible to escape, and government agents grew wary of his increasingly grand claims, some of which even Tesla's friends came to believe were truly impossible. Broke, betrayed, and exhausted, Tesla moved to a hotel room in New York. His workshops shuttered, Wardenclyffe seized for debts. The dream of free, limitless energy faded into myth, lending Tesla the reputation of a fallen, tragic hero. A pioneer in radio, robotics, and remote control. Public setbacks did not dampen Tesla's inventiveness. In fact, even as money dried up, his output of revolutionary ideas barely slowed. He was among the first to demonstrate radio transmission, building devices that could, in principle, send information wirelessly across miles. He also amazed crowds by controlling a small boat by remote control, what we'd now call a radio-controlled robot, nearly 100 years before that technology became commonplace. As with his other inventions, much of Tesla's pioneering work in radio was overshadowed by more commercially successful rivals. Guglielmo Marconi, for instance, often gets the credit as the inventor of radio, in part because the courts recognized his patents years before Tesla's were acknowledged. In a twist of fate, it was only after Tesla's death that the U.S. Supreme Court decided some of Marconi's patents had indeed been preempted by Tesla's much earlier work. Yet Tesla never seemed bitter. He truly believed that all his knowledge and inventions belonged to the world. He spent hours reflecting on a future filled with wireless phones, solar-powered airships, even death rays to stop wars. Most of these ahead of his time, most still only partially realized today. Throughout all of this, Tesla never found lasting financial success. He skirted poverty, feeding pigeons in city parks, and living off small loans and gifts from former admirers. Yet the newspapers occasionally ran stories about the old wizard building a machine to split the earth or chatting with Martians, and Tesla, ever the showman, seemed to encourage the wildest rumors. His final years, solitude and strange genius. As the 20th century thundered forward, radio, television, neon light, flight, skyscrapers, and war, all powered at their heart by electricity, Nikola Tesla drifted further from the center of innovation he had shaped. The world, now busy commercializing his inventions, seemed both to forget and mythologize him. Tesla's later life was marked by hardship and eccentricity, but also a stubborn kind of peace. He lived mostly in New York hotels, often unable to pay the bills, and frequently moving as debts mounted. Once, bellboys at the New Yorker hotel found Tesla dressed immaculately, but surviving on a diet of crackers and milk, sending more of his meager funds to charities or scientific causes than on himself. Always, Tesla was surrounded by pigeons. He spent his days feeding birds in Bryant Park and Central Park, and there was one white dove, especially dear to him, whom he called a kindred spirit. Tesla found solace, or perhaps reflected heartbreak, in these feathered companions, explaining to friends that he felt most at peace when among them. In his solitude, Tesla's mind raced on. He wrote extensively, publishing essays and giving interviews about his visions for the future. He talked of towers that could draw electricity from the thin air, of worldwide communication networks, of new sources of energy, and of machines that could make war obsolete by providing such overwhelming defense that aggressors would never dare attack. The line between science and science fiction in Tesla's late predictions became ever blurrier. He famously announced he had built a death ray, a directed energy weapon capable of destroying fleets and armies at a stroke. Though newspapers feasted on such tales, neither he nor anyone else ever demonstrated such a device. His hotel rooms often became impromptu laboratories, blueprints piled high, gadgets half-built, sparks flashing during late-night experiments that sometimes alarmed the hotel staff. Despite the poverty, despite increasing ridicule from the scientific mainstream, Tesla never lost his sense of dignity, nor his hope in a better world brought about by invention. Death and immediate legacy. Nikola Tesla passed away on January 7, 1943, at the age of 86. He died alone, but not entirely forgotten. In his final years, admirers and former colleagues visited as often as they could, drawn by equal measures of nostalgia, respect, and curiosity about what the old wizard was working on next. His death marked the end of an era. Within hours, government agents seized many of his papers and belongings from his hotel room, fueling endless rumors about secret inventions and state interest in his death ray. Some say the government feared that even in death, Tesla's ideas might fall into the wrong hands. Within days, stories celebrating his genius filled the papers. Scientists recalled his remarkable memory and creative insight. Friends praised his generosity and strange charm. For a brief moment, the world seemed to realize it had lost something entirely unique, neither just a scientist nor merely an inventor, but a mind tuned to frequencies most people could never hear. But while Tesla's funeral was attended by only a few loyal souls, his legacy was much larger than any celebration or memorial. His work had already transformed the world's cities into electric constellations, had made possible the broadcast of voices over oceans, and had sparked 100 industries that continue to flourish today. A life reclaimed by history. If Tesla's genius was ignored in his final years, history has done its best to make amends. Slowly, across the decades, the world rediscovered Nikola Tesla, not just as a footnote to Edison, but as a visionary whose dreams had shaped the modern age. Biographies, documentaries, and films transformed him into a kind of folk hero, a symbol of the misunderstood, solitary genius. His name now shines in places he could only have dreamed about. Tesla as the unit of magnetic flux. Tesla Motors pioneering electric cars and championing the very principles he fought for. Awards, societies, and even city streets bearing his name. Young inventors and engineers reading his story often find permission to dream audaciously and persist even when the world seems skeptical. Many of his original papers, once secreted away by governments, universities, and collectors, have been published and studied. Scholars have re-examined his vast trove of patents, sketches, articles, and musings, finding the outlines of technologies that now underpin everything from radar and X-rays to Wi-Fi and robotics. Even his most speculative ideas, wireless energy transmission, global communications, and renewable power, appear less like science fiction as time goes on. The world, catching up at last, is beginning to doodle in the margins of dreams that Tesla himself drew generations earlier. the enduring mystery and the inspiration of Nikola Tesla. All of this brings us, finally, to the question, what, in the end, did Nikola Tesla give us? He gave us, above all, a vision too large for the world of his time. His alternating current system powers the world. His wireless technologies shape how we communicate. His dreams push us to look further, imagine more boldly, and never fear being misunderstood. Tesla reminds us that the world's brightest lights often appear strange at first, and that true progress is always a mix of daring, failure, and relentless, beautiful hope. More than a century after the War of Currents, after the dazzling lights at Niagara and Chicago, Tesla's spirit flickers everywhere, in every plugged-in city, every humming radio, every experiment that reaches out into the unknown. The child of storm and the child of light is with us still. Epilogue. Lessons from a life of dreams. In reading the story of Nikola Tesla, it's easy to be swept up by the what-ifs and the might-have-beens. But the real lesson is simpler and perhaps kinder. Genius doesn't guarantee comfort, riches, or recognition, but it does make the world larger by daring to ask, what if? Walk into a room and switch on a light. Somewhere, in the spark that leaps across copper, in the hum of the airwaves around you, the legacy of Tesla lives on. And in every child who dreams strange dreams, who asks impossible questions, who is misunderstood or overlooked, some echo of Nikola Tesla shines, quietly, fiercely, undimmed.